Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Flóra about how to shoot and edit self-portraits. My name is Vicente Loschmidt, and I am the team lead for all marketing activities in Europe for our BenQ PD and SW monitor lineups. And we're so thrilled at the turnout. There's so many of you here joining us from all over the world, and we're just so excited to get started. We've put quite a lot of effort into today's webinar, and Flóra is really excited to get started as well. Before we do get started, I wanted to go over a couple of key bits of information. For those of you who don't know and who might be here for the first time with us here at BenQ, BenQ is the producer and the manufacturer of two product lines, two monitors, which are made for artists. We have the SW line, which is for photographers, and the PD line, which is for designers and content creators. These monitors are really built from the ground up to be made for artists. One of the most important aspects when you're working with art, photography, design, whatever it may be, is to have the most highly color accurate display that you can. At BenQ, we call this technology AccuColor, and it is the guarantee that the colors that you see in front of you are going to be the most true to reality that you can get on a screen. You might have had this before, that if you're working on a design project or if you're working on a photograph, for example, you take a picture of something, you then look at it on your screen, and you realize that the red of the flower that you took a picture of does not look very correct, does not look like the right red that you have on your screen. With BenQ, we really strive to make this, to bring that distance as close as possible to reality with the monitor, so that you can really have the most color accurate display possible. Beyond that, there's a whole host and bevy of features that are made for designers and for photographers, with different color modes, with the hotkey puck, which controls the settings of the monitor to really give you the most streamlined workflow possible. A bit of great news is that for all of the participants here today, you will be receiving a 10% discount code on the PD and SW monitor lines. We'll be showing that a bit later on during the webinar, and you'll be receiving it also in a follow-up email. If throughout the webinar you're interested in checking out BenQ's offerings, you can see here on the right side we have the links to the monitors, also to our upcoming webinars, as well as also to Flóra's Instagram, and also to her website. On to Flóra herself. If you are not yet familiar with Flóra, if you're not yet following her, then I highly recommend that you do so. If you're not aware of who Flóra is, then she has an incredible CV, but we'll go over some of the most incredible things about Flóra. To begin with, she's a Forbes 30 under 30. She's a Forbes 30 under 30 profile. Her face was quite literally the face of Adobe Creative Cloud in the past, in 2019. Her work has been featured very often by Photoshop. In fact, during one of the years when you were loading up Photoshop, it was quite literally Flóra's work that you would be seeing in front of you. And her incredible evocative style of self-portraits has really brought her all over the world with a host of different exhibitions in Asia, in the United States, in Europe, and she's just been all over the world. And really, when you talk to Flóra, when you speak with Flóra, you really see someone that is incredibly passionate about what she does. She's really someone who I would say was born to become an artist, really because of how much she loves what she does. And if you look at her work, you see there's just so much emotion, there's such a huge diversity in the types of images and the types of self-portraits that she makes. And she really has created such a distinct style and such an incredible following, such an incredible career, really, out of this passion that she has. We're really honored and very privileged as well to have her as a BenQ ambassador with us. Flóra has been using the PD and SW lines also for a number of years, and we're just so thrilled to have her with us today. And so you can really count yourself lucky that we'll be here today engaging with Flóra personally. Without further ado, we're all raring to go. So with that, I'd like to call Flóra to the stage, and I'm wishing everyone a lovely webinar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Flóra Borsi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, yes.
That's fine. Thank you everyone for coming this webinar, even though it's through the internet, but internet is for all of you to share knowledge and passion and creativity and everything that we love about photography and web design or composite images. Um, First of all, I would like to tell you how I started and who I am right now and who I was. I started as a young artist. I liked to draw when I was around 5 or 7 years old. And I had an incredible drawing and art teacher. And she introduced me to many, many awards. And I was one of the first winner when I was 7 years old of one of the most important international art prizes. And this is somehow predestinated my destiny for art. And when I was 11 years old, my sister introduced me Photoshop, and I was just drawing gradients and all the interesting stuff that I could do as an 11 years old kid. And then I started to do self-portraits when I was 14. And this was a big, big like game changer for me to work in Photoshop with my own images and don't just use images found on Google and just download it and try to do a composite image from that. So I got diagnosed with some bad things. So my health was really in a bad shape when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I decided to stay in the world even if I'm gone or something. So that was my first like major milestone in my career when I really had to decide if I give like all in to this artistic career and to the self-portraits, and this is what happened. And I'm a self-taught artist, even though I attended to Mohalina University of Arts. So I have a photography bachelor degree, but I just use photography as a tool for my images to born and to just enrich my skill set and to work with the images in Photoshop. So I wanted to just take a leap of faith and go with the Photoshop and the composite images, even though it was really, really difficult at the beginning because self-portraiture and Photoshop was not the best and most appreciated thing like 10 years ago in my career, especially in Hungary. So I had all the difficulties that every artist could have, especially in Europe. But I think I worked through it. So right now I'm one of the Hasselblad Heroines, and I'm one of the Hasselblad. Yeah, so Hasselblad just featured me in their recent product, and I'm the one of the ambassadors for the X2D, and I'm also an ambassador for Pro Photo, and as you can see, thank you. And I'm going to show you a video that I created with the Hasselblad team. So you could see how I'm working here in my apartment on my self-portrait. So there will be some videos soon that I'm going to show you. Vicent?
Yes.
Can I see the Hasselblad video on the files?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
We have, by the way, we've had some of you answering here a poll in the bottom right about what you're most excited about for the webinar. Thought we could have a look at that very quickly.
Okay, so this is the video that we made with Hasselblad, and this is me featuring the new X2D. And this was some time ago, as you can see, my hair grew out. But this is representing me as an artist working in the studio, and this is one of, or these are the images that I created with Hasselblad. And this is the phase when I'm creating my makeup for the concept. And many times people just ask me like, who creates your makeup and who does this, who does that? And I just say like, I learned all of this from YouTube makeup tutorials, and if I get a concept in my head which I want to do, then I just watch tutorials like everyone. So yeah, this is me when I'm checking out the images, and it's so weird to have all of these equipment and stuff on my face when photo shooting. So it's really, really weird to take the photo and to check the makeup and everything at the same time. And here at the background, my BenQ monitor, the SV series SV 271. And this is capable of doing the 100% of Adobe RGB, or 99, I guess 100. And this is very important for me to create my photos, because usually I'm printing them out as limited editions, or when I have an appearance in a museum, then I have to print my images out in a huge size. So that's why Hasselblad was very, very important to have as a tool, because of the megapixels, and it's just amazing. And the also very important tool is my monitor, and to be capable of the color profile that I'm working with. Many times in the past that has happened, that if an image looked like this, then in print it looked somehow else, and it was very, very difficult to fix all the shadows and the blacks, and just the oranges turned out to be green because I was working on my Macintosh and it's just not capable of Adobe RGB, only sRGB, which is a smaller part of the whole color space that I need for the photography and for the printing. But of course, if you are a designer and you are just doing your composite images or your images for the web, then it's not that important to have the 100% Adobe RGB color profile capability. So you can have the PD monitors, for example, if you are working in DaVinci or a lot of After Effects working, that's all web, not offline. So I also have one of the PD monitors, which is the 3220U. And I'm working on my videos that I'm taking with my Blackmagic, and I'm also color grading everything in that. And the final is sRGB, because I'm uploading that to YouTube or any other website, so it's not shown in theaters. And I would like to ask you guys, like, which one of the displays that you are working on. So maybe BenQ's SW series would be a huge leap for you and a huge advantage to have, because color accuracy is very, very, very important, both in photography, both in web design, and both in color grading and special effects and motion picture. Okay, I see the votes. Like, everyone votes for something. I'm so curious. Okay. This is so amazing to have you here, guys. I don't know the time when I had a webinar or a broadcast where more than 100 people were attending. So I'm very, very glad to have you, all of you here, and thank you so much for watching this webinar. Okay, so many of you are working on your laptop. Then you are in the right place, because I can offer you a 10% discount with the code here, which is Flóra Web 10. So if you would like to purchase a display, which is a professional display for what you're doing, and it's so much better than your laptop or just a regular monitor, it's an amazing display, and it's very, very necessary for me to do all of the pictures. Even if I didn't have Hasselblad, even if I was working with my old Canon 7D camera, the output is the most important thing. So let's continue the video. I'm talking about the Hasselblad X2D now and what happened when I upgraded to Hasselblad from my Canon, and all the quality and all the details and the tones and all the the sharpness is just amazing. So yeah. Usually I'm working with a Hungarian printer, so I don't print my own images, which is a lot of help because I don't make prints every day, so it would be really unnecessary for me to own a printer. And you can see how huge is the output. So with 100 megapixel, you will really need a good video card, so you could process the image and then you can work on the display with the huge image file. So that's a necessary stuff to have, a good video card and the graphics card. I have to mention that. Yeah, and this was me for Hasselblad, which I'm really, really proud of. And yeah. Back from that, I will start my presentation, which I prepared. And we can go here. So yeah, this is Flóra for BenQ. And today, we're also gonna talk about how I'm creating the concepts that I do. And the most important thing for that is to be honest with yourself and get to know yourself. For me, it's especially true because I'm working in a surrealistic style, because I really, really like to work with symbolism in my work and express my thoughts and my deepest emotions and feelings through the tool of photo manipulation and through photography. And I really like to create images that are reflecting to my own self or subconscious. Many times I'm dreaming about something, and halfway through dreaming or being awake, I just remind myself like, hey, Flora, wake up, you have to sketch this. And then I'm creating some sketches, and you can see me here with my dog Mocha, and I'm creating these sketches to remind myself of what I dreamt and how I imagined something. Because before that, I was writing down all of my ideas, like bullet points, and then I didn't understand like what ketchup and some lemon meant, so I couldn't get the concept after like 1 year of that. So I started to draw and make sketches of everything. And this is one of the most important and key part of my work, other than featuring myself as a model, is that I'm expressing honestly and maybe sometimes brutally honestly what I'm in and what's happening to me and what's happening to the world and how that reflects on me. And when I'm featuring myself as a model, I'm just thinking about myself as a tool, because so many times when I just photographed another person, it was very difficult to get to some sick ideas, and just break their faces with something or do something which is out of their comfort zone. They just wanted to look beautiful, and that was the main concept. And for me, sometimes I don't care if I'm not looking good or whatever, because the concept is so strong. The feeling that I want to show to the world and to the people, it's just so strong that it's coming through me. And many times I just talk about myself like a messenger, like there is some source energy of all the arts and all the things that is beautiful in the world or interesting in the world, and I'm just a messenger to share this message. And it happened many times when I had a really strong concept in my head and I just saw another person, for example Ellen Scheidlin. She's one of my friends, and she just did the same concept, the same image that I made a sketch of maybe 2 months ago, and she just did And and it happened reversely too. Like I did one of her concepts before her, but we all had the same idea. So this is why I'm saying we are, as an artist or artists, we are all messengers of something greater than us, and it's very, very exciting to be that messenger. And I prepared a list about how to prepare yourself for the photo shooting and for the pre-production of the post-production. And I'm gonna share this now. So be clear about your concept idea and make sketches. This is what I mentioned before. Be clear about the concept. Like, it's more easy if you just make one clear concept coming alive through photography or through graphic design. If you want to feature too many concepts, the message is not clear. Your audience will not understand your pictures. They cannot feel your pictures, and they cannot share the same thought or the same emotion, or even if it's a very different emotion that you would expect for the audience to get. Create a mood board for the colors. I mean, you can test and you can play with the different colors through the photo shoot, but if you are having the styling or the hair or the makeup or whatever, and you have to decide which color you are going for, then just make a mood board and a color palette and decide what you're going to feature. And it's also same for the lighting. Usually I was one of the few people who used only one lighting source, and that was my Profoto B1. But recently, Profoto just collaborated me on a big project, and I received more of their light sources. So I started to work with more than one light source. But before that, I was using Rembrandt light because yeah, photography a lot of the times wants to recreate paintings, and our visual culture was growing and was about paintings, right? And on the paintings there was no artificial light, only maybe the sun or a window. And if the light was coming through a window, that's called almost most of the times Rembrandt light. And you can Google it. There is a specific shadow and light ratio that is called Rembrandt light, and I was using that. But after I worked more and more with Profoto, I realized that maybe I can enhance my photography with more light sources. Thirdly, buy props that is needed for the photo or make them. Like, be prepared for the photo shoot and don't say, oh my God, I forgot to buy the flowers or whatever. That's also happened to me, and I had to do it in post-production. And it was, I don't know, like 2 hours plus to do that instead of buying that prop on whatever website and have them physically that with you. Choose your location of shooting. If you want to go outside, go to the location, scout the location. Like, again, be sure about your concept and make the strategy for your concept. Choose your lighting setup. I really like to use softboxes because I don't know, but hard lights are very, very hard to create a good picture with that, especially with the shadows. Um, I think hard light works with beautiful and firm faces. My face is not that firm. I have a very strong characteristic. And for myself, I like the softboxes more. Choose your makeup, hair, and dress, or your stylist to do that, and hire these people if you cannot do it. I don't know how many times I have seen photos which would be so much better because there was a professional hairstylist and a professional makeup artist, and the retouching phase was reduced like 80% because the makeup and the foundation was good, because the face and the pores were good. Good to start with, good to retouch. And don't forget to sign contracts with the team. That's very, very important. And choose your date. Like, don't say that I'm going to do that sometimes, because you will never do that. There will be always something that comes your way and makes your photo shooting delayed. So just choose a date and don't be scared about these things. Like, be daring, be playful. This is just a really good game for adults. I mean, photography and this kind of self-portraiture that I'm doing. Yeah, this is more information for the technical background, like charge your batteries. This is very, very important. I don't know how many times it has happened to me that I didn't charge my batteries when I had the Profoto B1 Lite, and I went to do a photo shooting and my battery was out of energy, and oh, that was really, really bad. Check if your files are uploaded from your memory card. It's very, very important also. You don't want to lose your files because you don't have enough space on your memory card, or you have formatted it accidentally and you forgot to upload all of your files. So whenever you are doing a photo shoot, just upload your files and export your files to your computer right after you're done. So pack your lighting, pack your camera, clean all the lenses. That's also huge for me. One time I didn't clean my lens and there was like big, big, big black point, and I had to retouch all of the photos and content aware tool in Photoshop. And if it was in motion picture, that would have been really, really bad. Yeah. Okay, and explain your concept to the team if you are working with a team. It's huge and it's very important to get on the same page with everyone and to explore all the opportunities that other artists can do for you. With Annie Leibovitz, she's one of my role models, but you can see that in her photos, the styling, the location scouting, the hair, everything is in perfect shape. And it can be like very, very, very good for your photograph. Even if you're just a photographer, just an artist, to have all of these energy from all of the artists that you're working with, you can have an amazing results, even if you are like not exposing the image right, or your ISO is just too high. It doesn't matter if the picture is good and it's good to look at and it's captivating all the emotions and feelings. Okay, check your white balance. It's also very important, and the shutter speed, aperture sync settings, and your ISO, and insert memory card and check if it's formatted. Check the file saving setting and set it to JPEG plus RAW. That's also a huge milestone for me. When I started photographing and I was a teenager, I didn't know about RAW. It was something scary. So I did my shootings in JPEG every time. And I just couldn't enhance or adjust the picture as much as I wanted. So to do the JPEG and RAW, it's crucial for your post-production. And I'm recommending plus JPEG too, because when you are importing your images and you just want to select which one you want to work with, and you are working with Fuji or Hasselblad or whichever medium format or large format camera, you have to decide which image you are working and which one you want to work with. And it's so much easier to open a 10 megabyte picture than hundreds of megabytes of picture in Photo Raw, in Lightroom or Bridge, or I don't know, like whatever software that you're using. Okay, behind the scenes of my PSDs, this is one of the most exciting parts for me to show you guys. And I guess this is the first time when I'm showing these things to other, like a bigger, wider audience other than my private master classes or my Instagram Reels. This is the original picture of the ethereal that was featured in the event's cover picture and in the event's background. This is the raw image of that picture. And as you can see, I built all of this in the physical world, so it's not made with Photoshop. And I did this white clown makeup. I wanted to go with a little bit orange or beige color, but after that I decided not to. So I neutralized all the colors and I left the lips be colorful. That was the only part of the picture. So currently this picture looks like very 90 or early 2000s. And I fixed the shadow because I like when an image is very homogenic. Okay, and this is the final picture. And as you can see here, I retouched my face. But for me, it's not a huge deal. Maybe for outsiders of my own site, it's a big thing, but for me, it's not. I created this look by using the mixer brush tool and then adjusting the opacity of the final layer for like 30 or 40% only. So this is how I like to retouch my face. I don't use frequency separation or anything artificial because what I have seen is that many times it's overused and it's overdone, and all the pores and the texture of the skin is just so artificial. Like you don't see people like that on the street. And you don't see people like the street like this either, but I think it's more like a painter image. So I wanted to like be true to my roots in art. And this is a close-up. This is the raw image. As you can see, I couldn't paint here on my nose, and yeah, I have iron deficiency here. So I didn't go through with this orange makeup, and I changed that. Yeah, I also fixed this little thing here. And I also draw some features like eyelashes and eyebrows. I really like the details of the picture. So for example, when a picture is printed in 150 centimeters and you just go close and you can see all of the details that I was drawing afterwards in post-production. For me, it's just enhancing the feeling and all the effort that I put into the picture, so the audience can really see that how like hard I worked on this image to be better than it was originally. So this is before and after. This is Teia, and you didn't see this picture because that's the raw file of the picture that maybe you have already seen. This is the raw, and this is the basic retouch that I did on my skin. As you can see, I used the mixer brush here as well. And I really like to use the clone tool here to enhance the edge of the lips. And I also use some color modification with hue saturation here on the lips. And I did a little bit of linear burn layer here, a little bit of brown, and a little bit of soft light layer to enhance the shininess and the fullness of that lip. And I used a soft light, a layer mode with a white brush, but I used it only maybe on 30% to have that chromatic feeling of my skin and that a little bit of shininess. And this is the bird that I choose to work with. And this is from, I don't know, maybe it's from Shutterstock or Adobe Stock. I'm not sure anymore, because I use both of the platforms. And this is the colorization. I used hue saturation here to change the layer color. This is how I cut this layer out. I like to use a pen tool for curvy objects to cut out and mask. And I also like to use some manual cutting out, but I don't use a soft edge brush. I always use hard end brush because it's very important to recreate the sharpness of the original picture. And I will show you something here in Photoshop, and this is my file here. As you can see, here are all the groups and all the layers, and this is the original one, and this is how I retouched it. It's not a big retouching. As you can see, I did this. So for me, it's not a big deal, but maybe for you it is. And a little bit of Liquify to make me even better. And this is the soft light part that I mentioned here. So as you can see, this area is highlighted. So it's basically dodge and burn, but I only used the dodge feature of the dodge and burn. And this is on 95 and 75%. So actually that's bigger than I thought. Okay, and here you can see on full screen. This is the bird, and this is without like erasing the mouth of the bird. It was necessary for me to erase it because it had to be open. So I just cut out this part and removed and relocated the layer here so the bird could open the mouth. And this is the diamond that was featuring. This is symbolizing me when I couldn't see from my pain and from my panic, but my partner was seeing the real world and how all the things are going and working for me, because I was in a really exhausted mental state, and I was struggling with panic disorder and anxiety disorder because of that burnout. And this picture is just representing that phase of my life, which is gone now, and now I'm perfectly healthy. But that era and that few months was really, really difficult. And I found so much joy and so much power and energy in creating this image while I was really sick. And this is the shadow that I added to the picture. So here, the most important thing when you are doing composite images is the composition has to include layers, which would look like it was taken at the same time. This is the definition of a photograph. This is what is differentiating a photograph from a composite picture. When we are talking about a photograph, it means that all of the parts of that image was taken at the same time, at the same place. And when we are talking about a composite picture, these layers and these parts of the images are taken in a different time, in a different location, maybe another part of the world. But here, your job is to make them look like as if it was made in the same place and the same time. And for that, your layers has to be having the same ISO, the same white balance, the same sharpness, the same megapixel resolution, the same exposure, the same graininess. So your job is to create the picture of yourself if you want to go with self-portraits, and then make your layers look like as they were there as they were made with the same camera, the same lighting. That's also crucial, and I forgot to mention that. And with that picture you can see, which I'm gonna show you soon, that it looked like this. And I just recover my hue saturation. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So I recovered the hue saturation and the brightness here. Okay, this is the picture, and this is what I draw. I did the remaining post-production of the shadows and the lights with only using soft light and multiply layer mode, which is good for recreating the highlights and the shadows artificially in post-production. And to decide which kind of shadow that you will have here and which kind of highlight that you're gonna be using here, I'm usually using as a reference my nose, the two different kind of shadows that you can see here, and the undertoned highlights. And I also use the eyes and the reflection in the eyes. Currently, you cannot see it, of course, but if you are taking a picture when your eyes is open, then you can see the reflection of the lights that you were using, and you can also see the shadows and how dark the shadows are, how hard or soft the light is. You can see that from the nose. And then you have to recreate the same lighting settings on your layer. And I was drawing with soft light layer and maybe a little bit of blue, because when you are drawing with blue, then you can also enhance the luminance and the saturation of your layer behind it. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you, and I'm going back to my presentation now. Here we created the mouth and we just blurred a little bit the edge. Okay, and this is when I created the shadow. This is when I put the other bird. As you can see, it's not mirrored. I don't like to do these cliche mistakes, so I just put more and more effort into avoiding these kind of mistakes that I also did when I was starting using these things. And this is the final treatment. This is the color grading phase. And as you can see, I enhanced the picture to be a little bit like Kodak Portra and Kodak Light. I really like to use presets in Lightroom, and I also created presets, which I will feature another time of the presentation. And this is the original picture, so this is before after. And this was maybe 5 or 6 hours for me, but I like to do this image a lot. So this is the story of Deia. And now I will talk about raw images and lighting. More of raw images. So this is the raw image of one photo session that I did. And you can see how much the image is enhanced, and my features are not that strong when I'm using a reflector lighting here. So yeah, usually my pictures look like this when I started to work and when I was using only one light source, and when I was using two for these kind of shots, it just became more and more professional looking. And this is all the posing that I did for this photo shoot. Usually I don't use any mirror or any display for seeing what I'm doing. And I'm just trying to imagine myself how I look, because I'm doing this for more than 10 years. So I'm really used to how my face looks. You can tell like there is a ton of makeup on my face, but it doesn't matter, because my post-production process is so much easier when my skin is better looking on the pictures. I would not go to the streets like this, of course. Yeah, so you can tell, like, it's very important to be yourself on the pictures, but you can play a character. There is nobody to tell you what you can do, and there is no one to tell you what you would do. This is your space, this is your work, this is self-portraiture, this is all about like becoming you and for like loving yourself for you. And you can play a character if you want. It doesn't mean that you are not okay with yourself, and you don't have to think about it. If you want to play and make a character and you want to make concept that is depending on the character, then play with it. I mean, I feel like a kid all the time, and this is a good part of being an artist, to going back to the childhood, embrace the little kid inside you and just play and don't be shamed for it. And I'm way over like being shamed for playing a character and playing something else that I am. Sometimes I'm truly showing who I am and then it's about me, but sometimes I just create something out of the blue because I have the urge to do it and I have an exciting concept for it. And you have to select the right image for your concept. And it's important to make a sketch, because if your concept is featuring one part of your face that is requiring to show and for the pose and for the message that the image is sending, then it should be a priority rather than looking good on the picture. So this is the basic retouching that I did. You can see the mixer brush I used here, and I like to use the mixer brush um, by parallel moving to the features. So I don't go and just make the mixer brush against all the shadows and coming to the different direction. I always use the mixer brush alongside the different features and the shadows and the highlights. So you have to go to the same direction as the light was going. And I also cleaned the edge of the lips out because it's not perfect. And yeah, this is how I retouch my pictures. You can also have your own style in retouching. Like, there is no retouching police to tell you what you shouldn't or should do. It's me personally who I don't like frequency separation and stuff. I just like to use the natural details of the picture. And to don't get blurry at the end, because mixer brush can be blurry, I always use unsharp mask to enhance all the details that was merged into the composition. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Yeah, so this is the final picture. And this is just a digital play. I did this for NFT showcase in Dubai. And the requirement was for that Dubai NFT showcase is to be modern, be bold. And this is how I did that concept. And there is also a moving version of this, which you can see on my website. And yeah, the next part is creating emotionally impactful images. This is what I'm all about, guys. I don't know if you want to do that like I did, but for me, it's such an amazing and unique experience. Many times I see a concept, like all of my concepts are ready-made in my head. There is like a final picture that I see. And many times it had happened that I did an image and my mom or a friend or somebody just mentioned like, oh yeah, this is what happened between you and him and in your relationship, and this is how you felt. I'm like, what? And then I'm looking at the picture and I've just grabbed something out of my subconscious, and I got reminded by the friends and the family that this is what happened to you and this is how you felt. And sometimes I'm just not aware of how I feel exactly. And this just helps for me to work through that. So this is also like a therapy for me. And yeah, this is one of my most emotionally charged images that I felt. And when I did this image, I felt like I don't want anyone to talk to me, or I don't want to hear anyone's story, what happened between them. And I just want to isolate myself from everyone for a little while, recharge my batteries, think about my life, like where I'm going, what I'm doing, what I'm in, how can I restore myself and don't get lost in the environment or other people's stories. And this image with the thorns is all about that. And this is not the raw image. This is already retouched, as you can see here on my hair and on the skin and the color grading. I chose to be in a warm white balance to start with, because it's important to choose your white balance when you are starting to work with Photoshop and your composition or retouching, because the colors that you are using are relative to the images that you are working. So if you were using really blue tones here and afterwards in Lightroom you are choosing to go with a cool white balance image, then you will merge all of these tones into a bluer one. And that blue that you were using before will not be that vibrant and saturated anymore, because it's not going to be the complementary color of the orange or the red. And this is the tones that I applied. I had a rose. I think I bought a rose for myself in a flower shop, so it was a little bit weird. But I used this flower, this rose, for taking the photographs for this concept. So I took 360 degrees shots of that rose in different angles, different perspective, close, far, whatever. And I applied the same settings, the same lighting settings, and the same ISO and same camera settings as how I did in the picture here. As I mentioned earlier, it's very important to merge this picture afterwards together to look like as if it was made in the same time at the same place with the same technology. And this is the picture after color grading. As you can see, I used the color grading pretty drastically and dramatically here. I enhanced the highlights, and I think I just overdid a little bit the highlights, but I don't mind. If it's drama, then do it. So I also used some clarity adjustments. As you can see, I just turned up the clarity here and the haze in Lightroom. I don't know if you're familiar with color grading in Lightroom, but if you're not, then you are missing out on something big. So if you want to color grade your images, like, you have some opportunities to do that in Photoshop with selective colors or curves or hue saturation, white balance, or like photography layer, photo layer. But if you are using raw files and professional cameras, then Lightroom is capable of so many things to change, and drastic change. And this is why I love Lightroom for the final color grading. Okay, and this is the close-up. You can see all the details that is Hasselblad and the tonal range. It's pretty dark. It's not that dark here, but you can see all the details in the highlights too. For me, while editing raw images, it's also very important to protect the highlights and protect the shadows at all costs. And just be careful when you are adjusting contrast or whatever. Usually I recommend, when you are importing your files to Photoshop, don't enhance the color grading there. Just use neutral pictures with normal contrast, decreased highlights, increased shadows. And then you can do the drama after you created the composite picture in Photoshop. And this is after applied the tones. It was very difficult because I cannot do 3D, and this would have required 3D to be like easier and faster, but yeah, I just did it offline and bought the rose, and I did it with the thorns in real life. Okay, I'm gonna talk about selecting images for the composite layers. This is also very important. Like I mentioned this before, you have to prioritize the composition outcome rather than the beauty or how much you like a picture. If you want to do self-portraiture, which is enhanced with Photoshop and the concept is based in Photoshop or wherever, you have to be really cruel to yourself, even though you see a very good image and you are like falling in love with it. You cannot select that if you cannot do the composition with it. And for that, I'm showing you one of my behind the scenes. This is when I did one of my pictures, and these are the self-portraits. Yeah, I messed up because the white balance was set to auto, but this mistake has revealed just only now and for you, because I just exported the JPEGs and I didn't adjust the rows to be on the same white balance. So when you are using raw images, the white balance is like whatever, because you can adjust that later. So I selected one of these images to work with. I don't know, maybe this one or this one, because here the light was not good. I mean, I look like if I was 50 and I couldn't feature the things that I want to feature afterwards. And you have to be really, really careful when selecting these pictures and be strong about your concept. And this is the picture that I selected, as you can see. It's a little bit weird. I look like a character from some, I don't know, Kill Bill character. And I adjusted my shoulder and my face a little bit with Liquify, because this was a science fiction character and this is what I needed to do. I cannot explain why I did this, but I thought that the image is gonna be good looking like this. This is all the color enhancement that I did. As you can see, I changed the tones to be a little bit like violet and a little bit of gray. And I'm usually doing this with my brush, and the layer mode is usually set to color or hue. One of my the next webinar that I'm doing with BenQ, I will go full in details and I will live edit one of my pictures. So I will explain why I'm doing these things and how I'm doing the Photoshop and how I'm doing, maybe I can show you my NFTs and how I'm working with After Effects. So the next thing was creating my spooky makeup and my eyes to be like, I don't know, scary. So this is before and after. This was done with 3 different layers, I guess. One linear burn for the makeup and one screen or overlay mode layer here on my eyes. I wanted to keep the reflections as the same. So as you can see, it didn't change that much because we have to protect the highlights. And this is the Scorpio that I did. I felt like these are like coming out of my skin. It was a weird vision, but I just had to do it because I felt like excited. And yeah, I did do it. And this is spooky. And this is the final result in Photoshop. This is how I managed to do all the colors and the tones and the layers here in Photoshop. I did these when the layer was flattened. So I flattened every layer into one. And I did increasing the shadows and the highlights and the midtones with the burn tool. So I did that because sometimes when I'm using the multiply or the linear burn tool, it just doesn't work with the original skin tone. It doesn't match the original skin tone or the original color of the skin tone. So when I'm working with flattened layers, then the burning and the highlight increasing is made from the skin original tone and the original color. So it's more realistic. And this is after enhancing in Liquify more and going back from Lightroom to Photoshop again. I usually do that. Color grading the image, and I'm doing the final details in Photoshop again because the color grading just excited me enough to do all the details and put that extra effort into the image. And yeah, so this is before and after the final touches. So this is like a Tim Burton character, and this was my aim to go for. And this is the original picture. Yeah, it's so funny for me to show this. Okay, creating an image with basic tools. As I mentioned, this is like kindergarten. You can use basic tools such as a pen or a pencil or anything that you want to work with, and don't feel ashamed if you look like a kid again and drawing something. And I'm mentioning this because this is the image that I did with some aquarelle pencil, and I just had to copy the edges and all the stuff, from the world, and this is what I draw. It's not perfect. It's not okay. I was not aware how difficult to draw the world map with a pencil and copy it from my iPad through a thin paper. But yeah, this is the outcome that I did, and this is the original picture that I did. I used only one soft octobox, yeah, an octobox here. It was really close to my face, so the shadows are limited here, and this is the image that I did. So this was really made with basic tools, and this is how it turned out. This picture is, by the way, called Word of Grief. This was made in a very difficult time of our lives during COVID-19 lockdowns. And for me, it was pretty difficult to see all of the people who were suffering and all the loved ones that people were losing and they couldn't do anything. So I felt the urge to do an image to reflect on that feeling and to make a milestone in my artistic portfolio to reflect on these times. And yeah, I felt so moved and so sad and so traumatized about all of the stuff that was going on in 2020. Yeah, it was a hard time, but this is how I survived. I created art. Like, this is how I always survived during dark and difficult times. I just created what was inside me. And this is the close-up. As you can see, I think it's obvious that I did it with a pencil, but I don't know. But I like the outcome so much. So yeah, I blurred the pencil layer here because it had to be merged into one composition, as I mentioned before. So it's very important to keep the details sharp where the background image, the original image, is sharp, and keep the details blurry when it's out of the depth of the focus point. So you cannot embed images that are sharp when the focal length made the image, the original background image, the original background layer of the model or yourself blurry. So you have to keep in mind to go along with these kind of technical background informations. Color grading to enhance the feeling. Yeah, this is rhyme. So this is the first image that I want to show, and this is the raw. Raw in colors, but not raw in retouching, because I retouched this, so sorry. But here, the retouching part is not that important, more the color grading part, which is important. And this is the color graded version. I went with a little bit of Wes Anderson and a little bit of Polaroid feeling, and also a little bit of Fujifilm feeling because of the greens and the intense oranges and reds. So as you can see, this is the before and this is the after. I like it, I like it. And this is another photo that is not enhanced with the color grading. And this is how I enhanced with the color grading. And I had to go back to Photoshop and decrease this because this is not the final image. This is just the color graded version. And I had to decrease the opacity of this color graded version layer coming back from Lightroom to Photoshop because it was just too much of the blues. The blacks were not blacks anymore. It was rather a little bit gray, and it was like overtoned for me. So I went back from that, for example. So whenever you are color grading in Lightroom, like don't be scared and drag and drop your image back to the Photoshop made PSD and just decrease the opacity to be more natural and to don't be that oversaturated, over processed image. And you can always do that. This is also before and after. I like the image as it is, but since I was a little kid, I like to play with colors a lot, and I like to enhance the colors a lot. I don't know why. This is who I am. And this is the final picture. So I used blue and cold tones for the highlights, and then red tones for the shadows and the blacks. And I just played with the feeling like these butterflies are coming alive from my chest and from me, and I'm like being free, and this is what represents the saturation here, because for me this was a strong impulse to do this picture, a strong feeling, and I could represent this with a strong meaning, which was strong for me, and the strong color vibration and saturation. Yeah, this is one of my spooky images, and I did this for 2020 or 21 Halloween. So this is raw. This is how it looked, and this is the final picture. And I went with black and white, which is not very usual for me, but I set up the green background because I like the luminance of the green background and how it separated the skin tones and the whites. So I went with the green instead of the gray one because I could decrease or increase the luminance when I'm changing the green to the black and white. And I can actually show you that right now in Photoshop. Okay. I just go with this and sRGB because I'm showing this right now to you. Okay, we just say flatten. Okay, I make a new layer, which is gonna be a solid color, and it's gonna be like, I don't know, like this kind of green, okay? And then I go and make an adjustment to black and white, and I'm gonna show you what I meant. Like when I'm adjusting the luminance, I meant this. Like you can be selective and adjusting only the green colors of your black and white image. So if you want to play with black and white images, just put a green background and you can change the background luminance or brightness, contrast anytime you want. So if you want to go with the bright background, then you can increase the brightness of the green. And if you want to go really, really dark or black or whatever, then you can decrease the luminance and the exposure of the green. And coming back to my presentation, yeah, this is what I meant. As you can see, all of the colors are enhanced to a certain level of luminance, which means brightness of the tones. So you can play with being selective with your black and white colors. And this is also possible in Lightroom. You can enhance different colors and different type of colors in Lightroom and making them the right selection for black and white images. This is the picture that I talked about and showed you the original ones. And this is the color enhanced version, which is like really, really vibrant and lots of colors, lots of saturation. And yeah, it's just living. And it's so, I think it's cool. Yeah, especially this part. This is what I like the most. I love this part. Yeah, this image was made with very, very warm tones because I wanted to go with warm tones for the final product. But when I was adjusting the color tones and the white balance later in Lightroom, I just decided to go with a more neutral, little bit bluish, neutralistic white balance. And yeah, this happens when you are working with warm white balance and then you decide to go with neutral or more like colder white balances. Like you can lose many type of colors during this, so be careful how you decide to go with the white balance when you are importing the raw file to Photoshop. Yeah, this is not a lot of adjustment, but I think it's also a mood that it's not very much a mood here because for me it was too neutralistic and a little bit too cold. But for me, enhancing the warm tones and the violets, the reds, and everything is like living, and I love it. I mean, the colors, I love the colors. And this is one of the raw pictures that I did, color grading wise. And this is how I color graded. And for that, I have these Lightroom presets on my website. This is one of my Lightroom presets that includes maybe 11 Lightroom presets. And maybe this is the one that includes 11 Lightroom presets, and the other one includes maybe 5, but you can get more information on my web shop. And you can get also the pre-production, post-production, like all the checklists that you would need. And if you are like me, I have ADHD, and sometimes I can get lost in a process, and then I just don't check all the things that is necessary to do a photo shoot or post-production, and I just forgot about something because I'm more interested in something else at that time. So for me, the checklists were really helping. So I made the checklist for every phase of your post-production and photography workout. So it's also downloadable on my web shop. And I would like to give you 50% off for my Lightroom presets, my checklist, and my private masterclass sessions. And you can go to floraborsi.store. The link will be included in the webinar room. And just screenshot this right now, BenQ person 50. you have to include this at the checkout to apply the 50% off. And thank you so much for watching. Okay, can I have a candy tongue, please, Vicente?
Hi, Flora. Of course, yes. Really fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
We're gonna move now to the. We're not done with the webinar yet. We're actually.
Yeah, we are not done. Like, don't go anywhere.
We're now going to be moving into the Q&A section. We have right here also a survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts about how you enjoyed the webinar, if there's what you enjoyed the most, what you would have liked to see be done differently. Just like Flora said, we are not at the end of the webinar now. We're now about to go into the Q&A. You'll be able to ask Flora all of the questions that you have. You have here at the bottom right also the Q&A section where you can ask away. For those of you who will not be staying for the Q&A, we want to say thank you for coming. As mentioned, we have here the discount code, which is listed, and we will also be showing that and sending that in the email that we'll be sending afterwards, after the webinar. If you enjoyed today's webinar, we are always organizing webinars about design, photography, and all kinds of topics that you can imagine. So things about landscape photography, seascape photography, design. We have a webinar coming up now with using Blender, for example, fine art photography, really every topic under the sun that has to do with design and photography. And we're very privileged and always very lucky to have incredible speakers with us, just like Flora today. So stay tuned on that. And yeah, without further ado, let's go into the Q&A.
Okay, so just give me some questions that you will need. Yeah, the webinar has been recorded, so you can see the recorded version of the webinar afterwards uploaded to BenQ's YouTube channel, I guess. And it's recorded, so you didn't lose anything. Okay, thank you so much. I enjoyed that. It was so inspiring and giving me courage to do creative stuff. Also, I'm Hungarian, so it was a pleasure to hear Flora talking about her work. Proud to be a Hungarian. Köszönöm szépen, nagyon örülök. Learning process from taking picture to which tools to use in post-production. Yeah, the next webinar will be about that, which would feature my post-production process, how I set up the different files, what color profile I'm working on, like what I'm working on 16-bit of color depth, for example. I'm using Hasselblad X2D, previously the X1D Mark II. And I'm mixing the lenses because usually for the close-up portraits, I'm using the 90mm Hasselblad lens. And for the torso features, which would feature like a bigger part of me, I'm using a more wide lens, which is 45p, yeah, XCD, which is also from Hasselblad. When I was working with Canon, or when I was working with the Sony Alpha, there were some times when I was working with that. I always use wide lenses. I just like how weird and surrealistic can it be with the wide lenses. And the portrait lenses, I started to use them only when I got the 90mm lens from Hasselblad. And that's also good for some parts of the art that you do, but choose wisely. The before and after images was awesome. I will come back with more of the before and after images for my next webinar. This was just some teaser because this was more of a global webinar of my process from the very beginning, from making the concepts to the final stuff. I do, I don't know, like 20 photo shoots per year. It's very random. When I feel like the energy and the passion to do it, I do one photo shoot every day for a week. And then I'm just so tired and go for sleep. And sometimes when, you know, like personal stuff comes up, then I don't do anything for 3 months. And then I'm just living my life as a non-artist, like a normal human being. The backgrounds of the photos, the explanation how to achieve these feelings that we see. I don't want to explain that much about the feeling because it belongs to me. This is my perception of that image. This is my perception of the thing that I did of with the image. So I would be more curious about how you see and how you feel about you know, all the feeling and the emotions behind or the thoughts behind the image. So I would let you subjectively decide what you feel or think about it. I don't want to like explain that too much and be objective about it. I really enjoyed the friendly approach, all the great information provided, and the quality of the webinar. Thank you very much. I'm really glad that this is your opinion, and I'm very thankful for being here at the webinar. The way Flora speaks and explain all the process, she's an amazing human being. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really thankful because okay, I just read more of the answers. Which webinar topics would interest you in the future? Like this more, please. Editing or color grading, lighting, color grading, Photoshop process. Thank you so much, Flora, for the great webinar. Huge fan. Guys, I will do as much as I can in the next webinar. If you have like a broader question or a specific process that you want to see, you can always book my private masterclass events. So that would be more personal and more, yeah, it would work better for you.
Flora, we have here in the Q&A, Sheena is asking,
Yes.
do you always use the same aspect ratio?
Most of the times I'm working with 5:4 because it's so easy to print 80 centimeter with 100, 100 with 120. So when printing and keeping the additions and the different sizes in a directory, it's so much easier to keep up with the different sizes. Because if I have like 100 of different images with 3 in different sizes and the aspect ratio would be different, then when I'm facing a collector or a gallery and they are asking like, what size is this? Then I should go to my Excel page and just see it. And, you know, if there is, the more the various picture ratios, the more difficult to keep up with all the directory and the inventory of the prints.
Fantastic. We also have a question from Adam asking, which hardware did you start with in your early years creating this work?
I used my dad's Kodak camera. I guess it was like B880 or something. It was my dad's. And then I fell into the sea in Greece when I was 15 years old, I guess. And I just bought a new one for my dad, and I sold hair extensions to have that money to buy the camera for him. And I worked for the whole summer to just make this up to him. And this is when we first started trying out that camera. And 2 or 3 months later, I won a National Photography Prize. And at the award ceremony, I was gifted with the Canon 40D, which was like a very pro camera for a 16 or 15-year-old girl. And this is how my photography experience with all the learning and the technical stuff began.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's very young. That's it's incredible how young the passion started for you.
Yeah, but learning all the physics, oh my God, that was hard. I didn't want to learn it. I just wanted to achieve a certain quality, but I just realized that I have to learn it. There is no other way. There is no shortcut. I have to learn it.
We have here a question from Iona, who's asking, first of all, she said she really, really enjoyed the webinar. She says thank you. And she's asking, how do you usually get your works ready for print?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you that part in the next webinar because this is a long, like, there is no one-step process for that. And I will show you how I'm enlarging the files in different steps and how I make the grains and the graininess ready for the different papers. And I will also talk about the color profiles that I'm working with the printers and how to increase the quality of the prints. So this is going to be included in the next webinar or my private masterclass if you book.
Great. Tanjil is asking, what are your favorite lenses to use?
As I mentioned, I like wide portrait lenses. Um, 45 on Hasselblad because of the crop aspect ratio is like 30, I guess. So this is a wide lens, but I also like to use portrait lenses, for example, 90 millimeters for the more specific, closely cropped versions of the portraits.
And Aguta is asking, can we see your teenage photos somewhere or somehow? I think they're interested in seeing your earlier year work.
I have from the DeviantArt and MySpace era. I have some. If you are coming to my next webinar, then I'm going to show it for the whole world.
Great. Yeah. Well, if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to write them here in the Q&A. As Flora said before, if you're interested in picking up the presets that she mentioned before, that's all listed also in the links section, where you can also follow Flora's social media in case you haven't done that yet.
Yeah. I forgot to mention one thing. My Wacom. I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro. Like, I don't know, that's the small size. I don't need a bigger one because I don't need it. So for my hardware, it was a game changer when I changed from this to my Wacom Intuos Pro. So that's also important for your process, and it can really be really helpful, and you can save so much time and energy doing that. But in my next webinar, when I'm like live editing, I'm going to show you how a line looks differently made with the cursor or on the Wacom tablet. Yeah, and another, you can use the discount for the private class, of course. So the 50% discount is applying to the presets for the checklist and for the private masterclass.
We also have a question. I believe this was during the editing part. Ineke asks, which tool do you mean by soft light?
Yeah, I'm making I show you. If I can I show you? Vicent, can I share my
Yeah, sure.
screen?
We can switch to a different room.
Okay.
You should see it now.
Okay. Okay, so here I'm going back to the, okay, here I am creating a new layer. This is my new layer. And I'm clicking on the brush, which is set up to normal and 100% with 100%, which is going to be important later on. You can always decrease the opacity and the fill here. So if I want to enhance the highlights and increase the tone of the highlights, I go like this with the normal skin color. And I just change the layer mode to soft light. And this is just a little bit of change, but it's also a lot. So I just decrease the opacity to 70. And it's almost invisible, but it's enhanced. And I like to enhance the little details like this. And if I don't like something, then I go and make a mask or with eraser, but I like mask. And I decrease the opacity because I don't want to erase the whole thing. And if it's too much here, then I just work with my black brush in the layer mask and just decrease the opacity of this layer. So this is how I meant with the soft light mode, and this is how I meant the linear burn, and the overlay is a little bit more dramatic than soft light. Okay, and this is the code for the discount, so you can have another chance to screen capture it. Okay.
Excellent. Great, then. I believe that's the end of the questions from everyone.
Okay, can we broadcast the results or?
Yes, for the survey that was I think already done, but
Yeah.
I really wanted to say thank you again to everyone who came to the webinar. I think it was really
Yes, thank you so much.
really was an incredible journey seeing all of this fascinating work and all of the fantastic feedback you've also been giving. And really wanted to say thank you to Flóra as well. It's so fascinating to see this whole process that you have, and I think for everyone, it's really incredible to see all of this mystique and creativity that you bring to your work, but then to see sort of the behind the scenes of that. And I think one thing that everyone always really values is just how down to earth you are, despite all of the incredible trailblazing that you've done throughout your whole career. You're such a easy person to connect with, and I think that really comes across. And it's a beautiful mixture. I really think of seeing the passion that you have and but also the technical prowess.
Thank you very much.
That. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but again, wanted to say thank you to everyone. As said, we'll be sending the discount code also that you have in front of you in the follow-up email very soon to you. And we really hope to see you at future webinars, not just with Flóra, but at BenQ. We're always thriving to really bring the best content and the most incredible speakers possible. So from all of us at BenQ, thank you again, Flóra, and see you at the next webinar.
Thank you so much for everyone, and have a blessed evening. Thank you.
Great. Bye-bye.